Hey guys, what's up? Sandro here, and today I'll be testing the most powerful, the most clean sounding, the most transparent, pretty much the best headphone amplifier and preamplifier that Burson Audio has ever released so far. So it's a fully discrete, transistor-based Class A amplifier that is fully preserving the soul of the music while still being super technical and clean sounding at the same time. So it's called Burson Soloist 3X, that will be tested with plenty of headphones and also with a pair of loudspeakers working as a preamplifier. So it has a hefty price tag of $1,100, but does it worth it? Let's check that out together. Soloist 3X is the 4th generation Soloist device, but is the first one that doesn't follow the same design language of its founding fathers. Burson dressed this one with a much nicer cool case that is considerably better at heat dissipation. On the outside it looks pretty much the same with its all-in-one sibling that we reviewed some time ago, the Burson Conductor 3X Performance, sans its digital inputs on the back, so I won't repeat myself in terms of build quality and looks. As for controls, on its front panel you'll find a 4-pin XLR headphone output, a single-ended output, a 3.5mm microphone input, a small OLED screen in the middle that will show you the volume position, the selected gain, input and output. The volume wheel on the right is quite special, and with 99 steps you no longer need to guess how much power is there left on tap. On the far right you will find a small menu button that lets you choose its gain, its working mode and its analog input. On the back you'll find its 24-volt DC input, a pair of XLR and RCA inputs, and since it can work as a preamplifier, on the far right you'll find a pair of XLR analog outputs. As for the tech inside it, we're dealing here with a fully discrete, fully balanced input to output preamplifier and headphone amplifier that is always working in Class A. It uses 8 output transistors in total, and 2 of them are creating an amplifier module, and it has 4 modules for a fully balanced signal. It outputs some very serious power, more exactly 8 watts on its balanced out and half of that on its single-ended output. Burson used 2 V6 vivid discrete op-amps at the input stage, and 2 of them are buffering its elitist Muses volume control chip that can be found in the best preamplifiers of today. Soloist 3X uses 3 max current power supplies that were developed and included for the first time in the Conductor 3. Okay everyone, I'm ready for some music, so let's hit some eardrums. Moving on to its sound performance, if I would describe the sound of the Soloist 3X with just one single word, that would be powerful, that's for sure. With a few more, that would be extremely engaging, very punchy sounding, so very speedy sounding, carrying just natural harmonics, dense, mid-range performance, a grain-free treble performance also, but for the first time ever, a very clean, transparent sound than anything they have done until today. So finally, Flux Lab Acoustics FI10 found its arch nemesis, and it's coming from the faraway land. And compared to any other Chi-Fi amplifier that I have tried so far, so be them from Topping, from Gustard, from SMSL, those are sounding very different compared to this one. Those are still waging the measurement war, but Burson is staying true to their roots, so that is sound quality first and then everything else. So still, if you care about the measurements, Soloist 3X is pretty much the best measuring headphone amplifier that they have released so far. They simply lowered its noise floor and of course used a much better volume control chip, just letting the amp shine brighter with transparent sounding headphones and loudspeakers. Also, as an audio reviewer, I need to have a standard when it comes to linear frequency response, when it comes to transparency and detailed retrieval. And that is precisely why I'm using daily benchmark HPA4, so I can differentiate what is bright, what is not, what is wet sounding, what is dry sounding. But when I'm listening to music as an act of pleasure, I'm doing that less and less often with the HPA4, and I would just power on some Class A amplifiers like this one or like the Flux Lab FA10. And when I'm listening to the Soloist 3X, I'm also getting this overwhelming feeling of being effortless sounding, very powerful sounding, very natural sounding, like some double triodes where hidden somewhere inside that are adding more emotion to the wall of air, more air between those notes. And Soloist is pretty much the pure definition of a warm and bold sounding analog amplifier. It's pretty much old school in its tonality, and this is what it makes it so special. As for its noise floor, I've used the most sensitive IEMs that I have at my disposal, the FiO FA9 with its 130 dB per 1 milliwatt of power. Those are working as huge magnifying glasses for any amplifiers, be them desktop or portable. And at first, Soloist 3X appeared as absolutely noiseless, so I couldn't spot any noise whatsoever. But once I started unplugging and plugging back those IEMs, I observed a barely audible white noise. So it almost wasn't there, but it was there. So it was the quietest noise that I've experienced with desktop headphone amplifiers. In this regard, Burson Conductor 3X performance and reference units were much noisier compared to this one. However, when I moved to my other IEMs like FiO FH7, like Little Dot Cookies, Mezerai Penta, Mezerai Solo, many others, I couldn't spot that noise anymore, so it was absolutely noiseless. It worked absolutely great. And I'm happy to say that Burson Soloist 3X is indeed an IEM-friendly amplifier, and this time around Burson left a lot more steps to play with, so I could easier find my desired volume position. What was 60 out of 100 on the conductor performance now sits at 85 out of 100, so obviously I could easier find my desired volume position. In terms of power output, I was able to drive most headphones on its mid-gain position, with the exception of HiFiMan Susvara that demanded only high gain to be moved. Surprisingly, Susvara sounded absolutely amazing, very great actually, very close to what I'm experiencing out of the speaker tabs of my power amplifier. They were simply alive, ass-kicking, so dynamics didn't take a hit. I was simply grooving all along with a huge grin on my face. What was kind of unusual is that at 80 out of 100 volume-wise, they became way too loud and still there was plenty of volume left on tap. And also with bass-intensive music, it was able to maintain a much longer bass note without shutting itself down, how other headphone amplifiers are doing. Not even Flux Lab Acoustics FI10 could deliver such a long bass note without shutting itself off. And in my opinion, this is pretty much the best amplifier for the HiFiMan Susvara without breaking the bank. My instincts are telling that Soloist is a lot more powerful device to the specified 8 watts of power, and as of right now it feels like the most powerful headphone amplifier that passed through these hands. In terms of detail, retrieval and transparency, I'll say just right away that from all Class A amplifiers that I tried, Soloist 3X is pretty much the cleanest and the most transparent, the most detailed one. That is followed by the Flux Lab FA10, by the Burson conductors, by the Audio GD D38, and then by the Kinky Studio THR1. It still cannot approach transparency levels of something like a benchmark HPA4, Sparkos Labs Aries, SMSL SP400 and Topic A90, but is coming very close to those. And with some boring music like Katie Melowa, like Diana Krall, with that, Nils Longren's song, I felt the same layered performance, so very clean performance. I moved my attention to the smallest details, and I've heard them loud and clear, and I didn't need to stress myself too much. The usual foggy nature of Class A amplifiers cannot be spotted in here. That mud that is staying in front of the musical signal cannot be spotted as well. And it was always clean, transparent and detailed sounding with pretty much everything that I have at my disposal. In terms of transient response, if poopy pants is something that are you chasing for with your rock or electronica music, then there isn't anything better than a Class A amplifier driving some huge planar magnetic headphones, of course. So my benchmark HPA4 doesn't stand a chance versus this one when it comes to sheer slam and impact. And those Chi-Fi amplifiers also cannot move the amount of air that Soloist is doing in the sub-bass territory. Burson always stood on top of the mountain when it comes to things like speed and body impact, and I sincerely didn't expect anything less out of a powerful amplifier that is biased into Class A, that is transparent and clean sounding to its core. It was always a visceral experience, so it always goes for the jaw with snappy tunes, dynamics that simply through the roof, climbing higher and higher, and just trying to impress a music addict as myself. As for the Soundstage Depth, you should know that transistor-based Class A amplifiers are always delivering the maximum amplitude to their drivers, so it passes the same current at any load, at any volume position, pretty much tensioning the drivers and delivering an instant power delivery on the spot. So out of all solid-state amplifiers that I have tried, Class A amplifiers are pretty much the best when it comes to things like Soundstage and Depth. And as you can expect, Soloist 3X performs absolutely amazing in this department. It is simply decompressing my music, so I could easier follow a single note. I could easier look at those instruments playing in the background. I can look at those tiny details, so that's much easier. It can pump simply more air. And in this regard, it actually reminds me a little bit about tube-based amplifiers. I think that it's airy and open and wide sounding all the time. It's quite special in here, and that happens not only with live music, but also with regular music that I'm listening on a daily basis. As a preamplifier, I've observed that its gain settings are working in the preamp mode as well. I would personally stay away from that high gain because it became way too loud and way too fast. And the worst thing is that those UniQ drivers were picking up a little bit of hum while staying even 1 meter away from those speakers. Mid-gain worked much better and I couldn't spot that noise anymore at the same distance. And of course, low gain was simply noiseless, even approaching those speakers with my ears. And as a preamplifier, it worked pretty much the same as Conductor 3X worked in my room. So it wasn't that dead neutral, how I would describe the sound of the Pre-90 by Topping or Element X. It was adding more weight and body into my music. The whole experience felt more engaging, much more impactful. There was a thicker bass and a warmer mid-range. It was simply infusing its medicine in my loudspeaker setup. As for the frequency response, at first it appeared as having an elevated sub and mid-bass performance. It was very strong in here, but the more I was listening to it, the more I started to understand that this is how the low end should be delivered, this is how the sub bass should be filled with my entire body. And besides being really punchy in here, it was always a clean type of bass, it was transparent, it was undistorted, so that is quite important. Mid-range had that warmth and tube-like fullness. It was simply oozing naturalness and lifelike overtones. And if you like your guitars thick, if you like a longer vibration of the violins, of the cellos, natural piano rendition, and of course some soul-grabbing voices, then you came to the right party. I didn't experience thin mid-range, anything like that. It was actually the opposite of that, so always full sounding, always being denser. That happened all the time. While treble is loud and clear, going up to the highest octaves, it never appeared as bright sounding to me, so listening fatigue was nowhere to be spotted as well. It's simply clean, extended, but without being overly sharp, so without having that over sharpness that sometimes appears on NFCA or THX amplifiers. And to some degree I find it even more natural to the Conductor series and to the older Soloist units as well. I have also compared this one with the Flux Lab Acoustics FI10 in a comprehensive way. Please check all that somewhere around here. It's on chapter 10 and it's one click away. Okay folks, conclusion time. I knew that the Soloist 3X would outperform both conductors in terms of sheer power and driver control, but I didn't expect such a big leap in terms of detail retrieval and transparency. And so far this is pretty much the cleanest sounding all discrete Class A amplifier that I've tried. Yes, it has a few small quirks here and there, but if you care for the sound quality the most, then Soloist delivered on all fronts and it left me speechless on several occasions, especially with the Hyphamassus Vara. Okay guys, my full in-depth review can be found on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, bye bye.